Informed. Be prepared. The Weather Channel. No place on Earth has better weather.
Here's a look at our tropical update, and yeah, we're over the peak of hurricane season. We're still essentially in the heart of hurricane season, middle of September, so still plenty to look at. Upper air winds, we like to look at this because wind shear is one of the biggest conditions for tropical development. If you have wind shear, you're not going to have development. And what we look for is essentially westerly winds. Look at all these westerly winds across the tropical Atlantic. An upper air low, we have one of those. We also have an upper air low in the western Gulf of Mexico, and even another one out toward the Bahamas. So we have these upper air lows, westerly winds all over the place. And let me show you what's going on here. First of all, looking out toward the Bahamas, cluster here looks pretty interesting, doesn't it? You can even see one of these cyclonic circulations here. Again, we're looking at an upper air low. Just looking at this, you might be thinking something's going on here. Anytime you have an upper low, you're really not going to get development. But if you have a feature that sits in the same location over tropical waters for long enough, essentially what happens is it transforms into tropical type of a weather pattern. But if it doesn't do that, if it moves along or breaks apart, then you won't see development. So we are not looking for development in the Bahamas. We are looking for more showers, more thunderstorms. Very similar situation in the western Gulf of Mexico, upper air low with a surface low reflection here. What we're looking at is very heavy showers, some thunderstorms. Some of this rain appears to be targeted towards extreme South Texas. Again, the story is the same as the Bahamas. Upper air low, we are not looking for development. But if it sits out over the waters for a few days, then there might be some sort of transformation process. So it's the height of hurricane season, something for us to keep our eyes onto. Over toward areas of the northwest Caribbean Sea, some showers, some thunderstorms also, nothing organized here. So we have a couple different systems, Bahamas to the Gulf, associated with upper air lows. Again, we're not terribly concerned about their development at the present time unless they were to sit in the same area for a long while. Also over toward the eastern Caribbean Sea, you might be thinking, wow, very impressive. Once again, another upper air low feature here. Upper air low, southwesterly winds blowing across this area. This is creating some shear. So this is inhibiting any tropical development. It looks very impressive, and I'm sure there's some quite heavy showers, especially across the Windward Islands and the southern half of the Leeward Islands. So essentially from Dominica, Guadeloupe, out toward Barbados, down to Trinidad, very heavy showers. We'll just have to wait and see as this wave moves along to see if this upper air low feature pulls along with it. So if they move in tandem, upper air conditions will still be unfavorable for development. But let's say the upper air low stays here and the tropical wave with the showers moves along to a more favored area, then we'll have to wait and see. But for now, we are not looking for development into the eastern Caribbean. Farther off into the Atlantic, again, just another picture here of the infrared showing the high cloud tops, very heavy showers. We do have a bit of a break beyond this tropical wave heading toward the islands, and then there's another feature, another tropical wave, but once again, heading back to the upper air winds, we have westerly winds. So with all of these westerly winds, that means disorganized showers, occasional thunderstorms. With all these features in the Atlantic, it looked pretty impressive, but with most of them upper air lows, so we are not looking for any immediate development. Well, Hurricane Nora is still at 75 miles per hour, moving west-northwest, a very large center of circulation, or eye, right here, and we still have coastal flood warnings out from Cabo Corrientes all the way down to Puerto Maldonado. Very heavy surf action still battering central coast of Mexico. So the surf is high, but what we're looking for is this hurricane to gradually make its way farther to the west. Very dark red here, indicating the possibility of some development here, maybe a little bit of strengthening. We'll just have to wait and see if there's any effects all the way up toward Cabo, if this is going to head toward Cabo or actually stay away. In the western Pacific, not much is happening. What's coming up? Here's Bill.
We have some marine warnings that have been posted because we do have some thunderstorms. Finally, thunderstorms moved in with this frontal boundary. I've been talking about it all day, right? Well, the frontal boundary has slowed its progression down across the Tennessee Valley. You can see all across southern Vermont and into Worcester, Massachusetts. We've got some thunderstorm cells to tell you about. And finally, looking at our regional radar, look out, Boston getting hit. These thunderstorms are moving to the east mainly. Now, we don't have very many warnings out, but some of them have been associated with some heavy downpours, winds around 40 miles per hour. New York is getting wet. Also, Philadelphia getting a number of thunderstorms in and around the Philly vicinity. And also, if you're doing some traveling around the beltway of Washington, D.C., a few thunderstorms there also. Again, the only warnings, however, are from the New York Sound up into the Boston Harbor. Those are special ahead of the front, not so behind the front. Declan?
Weather Channel. No place on Earth has better weather.
Well, here we are in, let's see, almost the last week of September. We have another week or two left, and it's been very quiet for the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, and also the Atlantic. It's been pretty active in the Eastern Pacific, though. So we're going to look at what's happening in all those areas and let you know if we're watching any areas. Well, right now, let's focus on our upper level winds. Now, we look here when we're trying to see if upper level winds are conducive to tropical development. Let's say you have an easterly wave or a wave coming into an area that you think, oh, it looks like it's trying to develop. Well, we look up in the upper levels of the atmosphere to see if there's diffluence aloft or wind spreading out, or a ridge aloft, an anticyclone, a high. Now, if we would see that, we would be concerned there could be some sort of development. But if we see a trough or an upper level low, we think, probably not too much of a chance for anything to develop. So let's see if we can pick out a couple of those features. Well, here's our trough. Here's an upper level low, and look what's happening. We have a few thunderstorms underneath both of them. Well, that happens when you have upper level troughs and lows. The thing is, for it to become tropical, probably not. But if the conditions should change, it's something that we might want to monitor. Now, we also see westerly winds in the Atlantic, and they've been pretty persistent for most of the summer, actually, which is probably a result of our El Nino. Pretty typical when you have an El Nino that you see pretty strong westerlies. And that's going to keep anything from developing, and pretty much our Cape Verde season is probably shut down here. What that just means when we say Cape Verde season, that it's going to be pretty hard to have storms develop in the Atlantic and track across, because we have the westerly winds aloft, which is a shearing wind, which is not good for tropical development. or for tropical storms to maintain themselves. So we do see waves coming underneath these winds, but will they become tropical? Probably not. All right, with that in mind, let's look at those areas that I said if it would change the upper level winds, we could be looking at something here. Just some surface troughiness here, and that's about it. Bahamas looking like most of the activity is off towards your east now. We're in the Gulf of Mexico. We can still see the twist with our low. At the surface, there is a low, a very weak low, about 10, 11 millibars. And it's somewhere, it's kind of hard to see with the high clouds, but it's somewhere like right in here. Now, the forecast, some models are indicating for that upper level low to kind of move and a ridge to build into the area. Now, if that happens, there's a chance. Now, we're going to keep an eye on this for you. If anything would happen, it's several days away, so we have plenty of time to monitor the situation. All right, here's the wave now in the Windward Islands, and again, with our upper level westerly winds or upper level low, we're not seeing any tropical development. But again, it's possible that we could weaken the flow a little bit, lift that trough out, and then we'll have to keep an eye on it. Right now, though, we're not too concerned with it. Another wave tracking across the Atlantic. Again, as we pointed out, the wind's not looking very favorable right now, and waves just coming off, and no organization at all to any of these thunderstorm complexes. So, very quiet, very good news. Looks like we're going to get through September maybe without a, let's see, well, towards the end of September without a named storm in the Atlantic. I guess Erica was earlier in September. Now, Hurricane Nora winds at 75 miles per hour. We haven't seen too much change here, although we'll take a look at a satellite picture. We'll notice that the eye is starting to close in a little bit. So maybe we are seeing a little bit of intensification. And it's moving west-northwest, and that's maybe why we're seeing some of it, because it's getting away from those turned-up waters where the last couple of days have been sitting there over the cooler waters. So now it's getting into maybe more favorable sea surface temperature area. But it is generating some large swells and waves, and so we continue with our coastal flood warnings for central Mexico. And look how the red convection is starting to get around now. So it looks like we may start to see Hurricane Nora intensify a little bit, maybe bring the winds up a little bit here on our next advisory. The eye kind of closing in, the deep convection wrapping around the system here. So again, it's something we'll watch. It's going to track very slowly off towards the west-northwest, and maybe eventually some of that moisture might make it into the U.S., and we'll take a look at our 5-day forecast here, our 20 after, and kind of point that out to you. Western Pacific, very quiet, very unusual for this summer, huh? It's very quiet. We do have a tropical depression, 22W, in the South China Sea that if it doesn't get away from land, it's going to have a hard time intensifying, but it just may do that. Coming up next, we'll take a look at where the weather's happening. Stay tuned.
The lemurs